I've just loaded up my dice box in Aspire. I want to give kudos to the gentleman on the web that's got this dice box, and he's developed it down to a lot of sections. And so I'm trying to CNC this thing. Files off of the internet, and there's a gentleman on there that's put a lot of work into this, and he's created templates for drilling holes. He's also created the templates for the steps of that, of the what to do and what to make on it, how to do that, how to assemble it, and there's no he didn't put his name on there, but anyway, very detailed, and really appreciate the detail that he put into that. And then here's your dice rails. These are the sides, the vectors. It talks about each one of them and the side. So as they go together, and works out real well like that, and talks about the material, different things like that. So a lot of information in these files. And the last one is the slides, and this is what I have captured into the Aspire to draw my drawings off of. You need to scale this to the size you want, because once you draw it up, it will be to that scale. All right, I had taken that original picture and had imported it from its PDF file, and just basically just imported it as a vector file, and it created all these lines in the vector file, which was, was somewhat confusing to me. And so instead of going through here and just deleting all these files out of there, because they were basically, they were individually each one, I found it easier just to trace the information, leave it to scale where it was, and for that to work the best. So I did it that way. So you might have better luck doing that, getting in there and cutting all the stuff out of it. I did that, and it was okay, but I found out that going with the one layer on this, as when I was first starting, was not the way to go. So 4 files that he sent available on the web to check it out, and just a little bit of information on this. The yellow indicates that they're the slides, the green is the top piece, and then the red is the interior rails, and this gray thing is a washer he put in there for weight, and then the black things are some zip ties that he put in there for to make the thing slide easier. So what I did is I just imported this off of a PDF file, took a snapshot of it, put it into about the approximate size that I wanted, and I made this box a little bit bigger than what his is, but this basically has all of the information that I need on the size of these boxes, and for this all to fit together. So we'll get this lined out. The pink indicates that this is the inner box, and that's what that's for. So after you make the inner box, that's what that is, and then these pieces all overlap around the inner box. So with that in mind, I'm going to turn off the bitmap player, and we're going to look at the inner box here, and it's basically just a square box. This box I'm going to make out of 1/4-inch plywood, and I'll just use the box joint jig and make a box that's basically 3.5 inches wide by 3.5 inches wide, and it'll be a little bit taller than that. I haven't gotten that worked out just yet. And then after you get that done, you go to side 1, and I basically laid this out so that these pieces all followed the bitmap layer. So when I brought it in here, I drew each one of these on this piece of paper, and then I assigned side 1 to side 1, slide 1 to slide 1, side 2 to slide 2, and slide 3 to slide 3, and so on. So those are the components for each side, and then there'll be a outer component that is added on afterward with all the decorations. I haven't gotten that far just yet. So keeping that in mind, this is the parts for side 1. I'm going to turn the bitmap layer off. So this is what I drew on the 2 red boxes, and let's just show you there. These are the 2 red boxes. So I outlined them, and then I did an outline of the box on the bitmap layer. So this is the outline of the box itself from top to bottom, and that kind of thing. Same thing with the slide 1. I just basically drew the picture around here, and did that. I tried to do bitmap import. It was a little jagged. I probably would have done better if I would have tried to do it larger and then scale down a little bit more. But anyway, I just ended up drawing the thing, each one, and drawing each one to fit. And then I could look at that. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn on all these sides, go down through here. And what I'm doing is showing you these various sides and their slides. So, and then the top and some of the dimensions that are on here. Okay, I didn't get like slide 1 turned on, so let's go up here and turn it on. There it is. Okay, so these are the parts that I built off of this. This will actually be the CNC parts that have the you know, tool paths lined out to. And this will all be one side. The blue is the slides. They're yellow in his drawing, but yellow's hard to show whenever you're trying to look at it. So that these are not perfect in every detail. Sometimes I have a little bit of a you know, up and down in them, but they're pretty close for, you know, this kind of work. So anyway, that's kind of what we're at there, and let's get that, looking back at that. Okay, this is the top box, and these are the rails that go around that, and that's basically the components of my idea of drawing this thing out. Now, the original box was only 2.5 by 2.5, a little bit taller than that. So we're going to look at the dimensions on this one here. And this box is considerably bigger. The outside dimension of the box that I make is almost a little over 3.5 inches, and the inside box is 3 inches. So this will be made out of a 1/4 inch plywood box joint jig, a box joint from the Box Creator and Aspire, and that will fit inside this thing, and then that will glue up on the inside of this box here. So there's that, and then that. And I can turn on the inside box. Let's see here, inner box. There we go. You can see where that fits in like that. So that's the dimensions of that. These, let's go ahead and turn everything off again, and we'll just focus on just the, we're going to hide all. All right, we'll just do side 1 and slide 1. And we'll make that active. Let's go back over here to the top and where that slide is at, so that they don't overlap each other. So this way I can put this out on the piece of plywood and cut each independent slide, and I don't have to worry about them, you know, fitting weird or anything. So, okay, this is the tab, and side 1 doesn't have a groove. So that's how we explain that. I'm going to turn that one off. Go to side 2, and you'll see that it has a tab and a slot. So this is the slot, and these are just recesses to keep the friction down. These little side reflexes are just there for that. So let's go to side 3 and turn it on. Go down here and look at it. And that's your tab. This is your slot, and this is just a slot. It's just a friction reducer. So on that. So each one of these tabs will fit into the next or the corresponding tabs slot, and so that's that works out good there. So in that, and then slide 4, look at it, turn that on and turn that one on, and there's slide 4. So that's your different your friction again. There's your slot, and this your tab. So the whatever side is on this side here will set on that side, and together they will go on there and fit in there. So in that respect. So again, there's your bitmap layer. As you can see that I've labeled them side 1, side 2, side 3, side 4, and so on. And they're designed like that. So we'll turn all these off. Hide all. And go back up here to turn on the bitmap layer. So anyway, that's where I'm at with this, and that's the ideas of my layers, and this is working out pretty good. If I wanted to be exactly the way his was when I imported this bitmap layer, and you'll notice that it is locked. I've got a lock on it so that it can't be changed. I would have drawn this in and scaled it down to, a known size. For example, the tabs or these rails right here would have been a certain height. They were almost 3/8 of an inch. I think he said they were 5/16 by 5/16, a little over 1/4 inch. So I could have resized them down to where that would fit in there, a little 5/16 by 5/16 block, and then drew it, and it would have been the same size as what his is. But if you want to draw one of these and you want it bigger, all you got to do is to take this drawing, scale it in bigger, and then draw around it, and all your components should go to, to fitting, because you're scaling it up proportionately. Two, I'm going to turn the bitmap off so that we lose that. This is the two layers that I've added in here. Basically, we're going to zoom into that so you can get a good shot of what it is. Zoom out maybe just a little bit. Side 2 has the outside pocket, and it has the inside pocket, and it has the 2 blocks that are in there. So we're going to turn off the side 2, which will be this block and this block. We're going to turn that off, and you'll see that it's not being cut out of there. And then this right here will be the pocket that goes out of that piece of material. That will be this width. And then so if we go on the outside, turn on the side 2, you'll see that this piece will actually need to be strung out to that far on the piece behind, and that will be the side 2 box. So when we get ready to cut the piece of material, it's going to be that. Now the way this was designed out with this bitmap layer, you can see that when you turn everything on, let's just do a show all, just for the fun of it. I'm going to show everything, show all, and you can see what happens is stuff starts getting overlaid. So if I had these outside pieces laid over the top of these, then they would be, overlaid to the point where it's, they'll cut over to each other. So I ended up having to put this on a different sheet. And we'll just jump over here to this sheet here, and these are outside. This is where I'll put in my custom, like my dice numbers or my holes or my code, whatever it is that I'm putting on them. So they're basically pretty much all the same size except for size 6. It'll be cut down just a little bit, and they'll go all the way around that and equal out, to my understanding anyway. So we'll go back over here to this sheet. I'm just simply double clicking and in that. So using the layers, I've itemized this all down. I think I'm going to have one layer that comes in and gives me the overall dimension of the side, and it will have the box and the side, and I need to watch the video to pick that up. The pink is pretty much that, but it doesn't show it behind the red blocks. I know that it doesn't go with the green block, so I'm going to have to probably pick up whether or not it's even or past it. So in some cases they run past, in other cases not. So I'm going to make one more layer for the side base. We'll call that the side base, and we'll get that figured out now. So let's go down here and get to it. I just took my on my sides, and I took the outside of the deal and I put it and copied those or moved them to a side base, like I entered side 1 base, side 2 base, and so on. So this is with the pocket that'll be on the base, and to make sure that they all fit on there, and which makes sense now. With the other drawing that I had, I was like, okay, where's that at? So now this makes sense. And if you turn on, for example, side 1 right here, it will add the 2 blocks, the slide and the slide 1 blocks. So there are the blocks, which I'm not really cutting those because I'm going to be doing the pocket. And so we'll turn off side 1, and let's turn off the outside, and side 1 pocket, slide 1, turn the slide off. So that basically gives us all we really need to know to cut these out. So this will be my rough stock, which I'll take a piece of plywood and cut the rough stock out on the last cut, but then I'll pocket this first. So first thing I'll do is I'll pocket this, and this will be a piece of, let's say, 1/2 inch material, and then we'll pocket this down to not quite 3/8 deep, and I'll leave 1/8 inch on the back side. So that will be those sides here, and then I'll do the same for that. And then we'll cut the sides, the slides, and here's the side, here's the slide, and we'll cut the slides, and they'll fit in there, and they should slide in there just no problem at all, and that kind of thing. And then I should get down to rendering these 3D so we can actually see what it looks like. I'll do a toolpath here in just a little bit and get that done like that. But anyway, that's what I've added to it, the pockets, and change that around. So now that I have that done, then I know which one. So there's the base. That's actually the pocket that cuts out the base. And then got the slide that fits in that. And then on the next sheet out, I'll have the outer piece that fits on over that. So I'm getting all my components lined up. And fine. After I carve the words, this is what they're going to look like. Probably put a 45 on all these corners so that they'll just kind of fit in together with each other. That way the joint will be right there on the very end. Not real sure just exactly what I'm going to do with that, but that's kind of what I'm back on sheet 1. I'm going to look at the layers that are on here. This is the pockets and the outside of the box. This is the base layer and the pockets. So whenever I do those pockets, this will actually cut it down out of a piece of 1/2 inch plywood, cut it down to about an 1/8 inch, leaving a 1/2 inch block on these sides here. And then these are our pass-throughs. So these are the parts that cut cleanly through the block of wood so that all the layer mechanisms will work. And then this is the outside that cuts out the outside bases. So let's go ahead and take a preview and see what those look like. I'm going to preview those, and preview visible toolpaths, and that's kind of what those look like. You can see them in the 3D view where they pocket around these right here, and you can see that then it clears out the ends for like the slides going there. And I have not assembled this yet, so I haven't cut this yet, so there could be some things that are not quite right yet, but I'll tweak them out and see what they look like. And that's what that looks like. 4 or 5 days of working with this, I had all the steps that I'd put in to get to this point, and they're at the very beginning of the video, and then at the end of towards the end of the video, this is the part that I've brought together. Basically, I started off, of course, with the PDF file, and then I captured that with a screenshot, and then I brought it into Aspire, and I sized it the way I wanted it to be sized. And then after I sized the bitmap, then I started drawing all the individual pieces and drawing that up. And then after I got to that point, when I got ready to start machining it, I realized that I needed to go into the different sheets. And in the sheets, I came up with material wise. Let me go ahead and make that just a little bit wider so you can see what's there. Your pockets and the part that the inner mechanisms is a 1/2 inch. You can make that out about anything. The inner joints, box joints, this is going to be just a box joint that's made out of 1/4 inch plywood. And then the outsides are be a 1/2 inch, probably a piece of oak or something like that. Slides will probably just be a piece of 1/4 inch plywood or something like that to go in that. So this different sides, the different materials, they need to be laid out a little bit differently. And then my layers list went to where I had put everything on its own layer. So after I drew all my pieces in here, and this is the design, I kind of drew it all right here, and then I exported the components out to these 4 sides. And right now we're going to turn everything on. I'm going to show all. So that's going to throw in all the different pieces that go in together. After I got my box designed in, and I had all my drawings around all my blocks, all my pockets, the various parts, I came up with the inside of the box, how big it was going to be. So then I went into the gadget tool, and I created this box with the gadgets. And this box is a little over 3.5 inches, 3.6535. And then this will fit together, make a nice square box. I didn't put tabs on the top because it'll be open. So I'll box glue this together, and then it'll be wrapped with the inner box and then the outer box and that kind. So as I went into my layers, let me go ahead and turn everything off. We're just going to show hide everything, and then we'll go down here and turn on our side base, and there's their side base there coming on. Then our side one, these are the little 5/16 in his what he talked about, and then I really drew them. I didn't really need to, but I put that on that one. And then my side pockets is a box that goes around here, and it shows how big this piece. I needed this for doing it on the CNC, and then of course the slide, it came in here. Let me just go ahead and zoom in a little bit on that, and the slide came in on that, and then my outside came on the outside there, and that was those four different parts. And then as I developed that, then I copied my vectors and moved them, or just copied them to my different sheets where I needed them, and that worked out good. Then my outside text, I took this and I went to my drawing, and I went down here to my plate production, and I created a list with the code in it. And after I did that, then that put me to this right here. And so that went real well. Dogs. Looks like my son showed up, so we'll get this off. Anyway, the parts went together, and we got all the different parts. I did the same thing for all the rest of the sides. Side 2, side 3, side 4, side 5. And these are all my layers that came together to get to that point. All right, I used my pin nailer, and I just used some 23 gauge 1/2" pin nails, and I put like 4 in here and just lined it up to the front edge. Got it ready to go. Zeroed, squared my corner, zeroed it, and I'm gonna load up the tap file to cut out the box joints and let her rip, tater chip. You know, it was funny is I did a 0 for center for my origin, and I thought, well, I better check it. And of course, the shark tells you where the material is, and it's the bottom left corner. So I just re-zeroed and put my down here. That's the one, the strength of the shark. It doesn't have a home position. Home is where you start it. So that's a strength to me instead of a weakness. Anyway, that's we got it set. We're gonna let her cut out now. All right. Whenever you do the box creator, it starts out with a ramp and probably tabs. So for some reason, I've got it starting out with a ramp, and it'll take its time coming around there. So I might need to adjust that up just a little bit, see what it does here. And it's cutting out what looks like the bottom piece for this, and getting a real rough cut. Probably I'm using a cut. So, all right, I've got this going in cutting. I'm looking at my cut with this end mill, and it's up cut, and I'm getting lots of fuzziness out there, and I'm thinking, okay, I need to change that bit out, put a different bit in there. And at the same time, I went back and forth into the office many times to make the adjustments and tweaks and things all through this video. It's just a go out and cut, and then I just go to the thumb drive, go back into the office, make some adjustments, save it, recalculate, come back out and give it a go. So that's what we're doing right there, and let's move on to more fun. Alright, moved on to one of the sides. I'm going to cut that out. While it's doing that, I went over and checked the old sander. You don't have one of these Milwaukee little pad sanders? M12, wonderful sander. Probably the best sander I've ever had. Really enjoy it. I took that old fuzzy thing and went over it for in about 2 seconds. These pads, they're like a screen. They last like 10 times longer than regular sandpaper. I think I've only went through 2 of them, and I've sanded lots and lots and lots. Of course, it's plywood, you know. This is my scrap. I'm just basically Went through a old dresser that was falling apart. It's just a laminated veneer dresser. Took it apart. There's a little cherry in it, and so I'll repurpose the cherry and the oak side rails and put them to use. And I'll probably actually use some of that right there for the sides of the box. And I'll just trim it up and clean it up right down there and put it to use, so I don't have to, buy any wood for it. And anyway, so that's that. This is CNC going to town. Looks like I need to put a tack in it and pause it. And I'll put a tack. Well, that's the first time I put the new DeWalt to use. That's 50% quieter than the others, and it's working good. Cleaned up a little bit of the mess that I had made. I've got to repurpose my box and put it to use. Anyway, back at the shop, kind of rusty. I'm finding myself tripping all over myself out here. So it's what's fun when you take your beautiful lady and go to the ocean and the mountains on vacation. You come back, you're a little rusty, but it's worth it. Collie thinks it's worth it. There we go. Alright, I've taken a dresser apart, some 1/2-inch plywood, so I'm going to use it as the pockets for the switches. I guess I need to put a switch in there, huh? Well, I have a love-hate relationship with tabs, and so anyway, there's that. I had one go wild and put a little notch in my sidewall up there, so no self, put some nails in it. Anyway, I put tacks in it as I went around on the other one. After 2 cuts, between the first and second cut, I put a little tack into it. Okay, I got these cut, and I had one snafu where I went flying and my bit went little campy-wampus. I learned through the process that 3 of these are basically the same, the keys, and so. And then the other 2 is a little bit different, so there's not much difference there. There's the box, and right now I'm cutting out the cutout for the slot. These are pockets. Went to a 1/4-inch bit, and I'm cutting out the pockets out of the side pieces. And we'll let that run. It's 16% of the way through, 2.5 minutes. I was using a 1/8-inch bit and had it going, it was just too slow, so I stopped in the middle of the process and added a 1/4-inch bit and then put a 1/8-inch bit. So we'll just see how that runs. We'll let that run and see what we get. This first pocket was cut out of the down-cut 1/8-inch bit. That's an older bit, but it's not near sharp. This is a brand new bit. It's a down-cut, and that other one was an up-cut. And look at the difference in the top of the cutout and the down cut. So it's just doing a beautiful job. Of course, it's sharp and brand new. So, and it's doing it in a 1/3 of the time. It's not a little bit more than that. The 1/4-inch pocket tool path. Now I'm running the 1/8-inch, and it's all doing is going around the corners and the sides, and it's basically just cleaning out the corners. And I've got it set to go down 3 times, and that's because the bulk of the material is down. So once it does that, it goes down and then down to the bottom. So it's just basically cleaning out the very corners of the cut, and then it moves on to the next one. So that cleanup, maybe 4 minutes. So when I moved to the 1/4-inch cutout profile, made a big difference in my time. and I'm glad I did it. And I can see where that thing's now going in the corners there and cleaning up those square corners. Whether I need it or not, these are the pockets for the slide. Probably could get by with just kind of rounding over the slide a little bit, but I thought I would go ahead and do this just for the fun of it. So there it is. Alright, my first iteration is my box needs to be cubed. So it's the same length, width, and height as all of them are. Wasn't sure, but after I measured it is all 3.5 inches full. This top piece here, I cut it a little bit on the inside because I think on my vector, I need to move my vector on my top piece just about 1/8 of an inch all the way around it, bring it inside, and we'll see what we get from that. Alright, I'm flattening that oak board that I had put in there. Basically, I went around it and put in a 1/8 inch kerf all the way around it and using the washers to hold it down. The more I do that, the more I like it. It doesn't shift, hold it down, nothing to get in the way of the cutters. And right now I'm just going around and flattening it because I'm going to V-carve these and then cut them out. So we'll let that do its thing, and then we'll get into V-carving. Alright, we flattened that surface using the groove in the side here and putting the washers in there. We've got the 4 corners put on. I really like that because it just doesn't move anywhere, and it keeps it flat, and you don't have to worry about your cutter getting into it too much. Alright, we did a nice job carving that out. When you flatten it out, it does a really good job. Everything's the same. If you don't flatten it, it gets to be hit and miss, and you end up getting frustrated with it. So anyway, got that part done. I'm going to cut those out now and see how they fit. Alright, after servicing them and running the V bit on them, cleaned them up, just not lightly sanded the top surface, and those will be the outside boxes of the cube. I need to cut them down a little bit probably, but anyway, there they go. Alright, doing a little tweaking. I went through and used the calipers and went over the box. And now I'm editing the slides to get them a little bit more tolerant fit. They work as they are now. And then I went through and I put, I'm going to label them with the laser first. And to give you an imprint of what the sides look like. And so kind of know what is going on with these little slides before you even start. Just going around them. I've got them kind of nested in there so that they'll do their thing. And then the up means that's the way it goes up on the box. And that's kind of how she goes. Alright, well that's cutting out some of these tabs. I basically went, after I assembled this thing, I put 2 holes in it. One of them is the well, it's actually one hole in the slide, but there's 2 positions. There's open and closed. So when the notch is engaged, that screw will fit in another hole. So I have 2 holes. So I was able to study it this way by going around and closing them all, opening them all, and checking the fit and everything. This made it easier for me to not have parts flying all over the place. So I went through and I measured all of my slides and recalibrated them a little bit, added a little bit in here. And then on the box, in the design, he basically used a fixed set and went all around it. Well, I'm kind of modifying that, and I'm going to fill in the spots because the CNC's cutting it out, so it didn't really care. You know, you just tell it where to cut. Anyway, so I'm going around it, and I'm adding that. So I've done the slides now. I'm getting ready to cut them out and check them for fit, and then I'll go back in here and I'll modify the sides. And then I modified the top so that the top fit, and the box inside, of course, was the foundation, and I started off with the box creator so I can duplicate that every time. And then the outside box, I've got these out here, and verdict's still out yet on that. I'm thinking a box joint on the outside as well because I love box joints. So Alright, I've got some of that .407 thickness plywood. It's a little around 3/8 thick. I could pull it out of an old dresser. Anyway, I'm making these boxes. I've dialed in the side pieces. I'm going to hit them with a clearance tool. It's a 1/4 inch down-cut end mill. Cuts nice and clean. I'm going to go around it with a 1/8 inch, and then got several operations with the 1/8 inch to get it done. So we'll see how this comes out. Alright, this is the first cut with the pockets set up. I had to make a little modification. I did it alright except for the last cut. I cut inside the vector instead of outside, so they're all a little bit short. And then I've had to increase my tab thickness so that they didn't move. I've got that going on right now. And that's the first prototype. This is my pocket prototype. I'm getting ready to move on to these. Basically, I'm cutting them out now, so that'll be good. I'm going to laser those pieces in, and that way it marks them what they're doing and where they're at. And then we're going around and cutting out the outside part. And there you go. Alright, this is my second pocket cut, and we'll see how those perform. I have to modify my clearing portions a little bit, but we'll see what we do and come over that. Okay, this is my third day out in the shop. They're not full days, probably 6 hours, 5.5, 6 hours. And I've been refining all my cuts. The box creator, I'm pretty much staying the same with that. Been refining all the little parts, making sure that they all fit. The pass-throughs on the just added one spacer to it, and then this is my third rendition of this, and this one's still got a couple more. I'm getting ready to cut the pockets. And this design, basically, this changes a bunch because this outside is all one piece, and then the pockets fit all around it. So it adds a little bit of about not quite 1/8 of an inch to the dimension of the box. And here you can see on the bottom I have the spacer that adds it in there. So you can see right there at that little spot right there, that's the thickness that's added to the box, and that's the outside for the whole thing. And then of course it cuts down to the pockets. So you have to keep that in mind if your material is a little bit different. But anyway, I'm getting down to the point where things are pretty good. I've added some different spacers each time I have to do that. I actually burn in the parts, and then I lasered them up so that it makes it easy for me to figure out where the parts fit. And for example, one up, I found out that I needed a little bit longer tab, so I would add a longer tab, and that was because of my 1/4 inch spacer on the bottom. And so anyway, that all fits in there, and it'll slide up in there. So now I'm creating another box, and that'll fit around this one, and it will check these settings, and then all my sides together. So I'm getting ready to cut that out. I recycled an old dresser that was all beat up. The laminations was all beat up. It's old, and the material is really excellent as far as the core on it. It's really good. This is a piece of old. No, these both here are some good stuff there. I did make another one because I'm getting ready to do that, and I just glued them together with the DAP 30-minute glue. But anyway, this old plywood that came out here is solid core. There's like no defects to speak of or any voids. This is a slot that I've drilled in it, and for the lengths of doing that. So anyway, I'm getting ready to do that. That old dresser, I just pulled it all apart and recycled it. The materials that we get now, a little bit different. I'm going to, after I get done, I'm going to tweak it with materials that I can get from the box store, and mainly plywoods. So I've got to bump them up. Whenever you're making these boxes, like right here, what you can buy now is a little bit different thickness than this. So this is just what I was using as I was drawing it in. And I probably would have been better off just to use the original or the latest day materials. That way I wouldn't have to tweak it at the end. But I'm a tightwad, so I wanted to use up this old stuff. And I'm using that DAP 30-minute glue, which makes this really strong. I mean, I was able to put this box together in about 5 minutes, 3 minutes, and then hit it with the 2P10 on that. So anyway, if this was 1/4 inch, these tongues would stick out, and they wouldn't be that. They would be a little bit flusher. But when you're baking these things, and it's all dependent on a 1/16 of an inch, whether it works or not, it's important to have it all exactly right. Some things I like about the small shop, everything needs to be on wheels so it rolls around, with just nice and easy and slide. So this is my clamp rack. I can come up here and just lift these things off of there and take them off there. I just do have to just pull my table saw out and get access to it, but that's really easy. It's just it's on wheels, so it just rolls right back into place. So everything pretty much in my shop is on wheels, so it moves in and out. All right, I'm getting ready to square these glued up boards up. I'm going to put a groove around the outside edge. It looks like that right there, and I just added this to it. This is the material for these dice boxes. It's the pockets part. You'll saw there's my dust collection set up. I have it pinned it around my neck that turns on the dust collector and goes on. I do have to roll my tools out and hook up my cords, but you know what, picking that stuff up and get down on the ground, it's good exercise for me. When I was younger, I was taught about, when I did it for productivity, it was not so important for me to wear myself out, but in today's environment, I'm 65. It's not too bad to reach down there and hook a hose up, put the power cord in, pick things up. It's just good exercise, and I don't get the exercise like I used to as a lineman. And so, I don't really mind the extra work there. Okay, using the washer and screw down, I've just got to put a groove all the way around this plywood. I don't have to all the way around it, but I generally will do it just because it makes it easy. So I'll just set my fence over, and it's enough of a clearance that it doesn't slide down in there, and I'll cut this little groove. It's not very deep in there, maybe 1/4 inch, and about in the center of it. It doesn't have to be perfect, and I'll go around and put that in there, and then I'll use a fender washer on the outsides and anchor it down. I generally will put one straight through too. That keeps all your hardware out of the way of your CNC machine. Holds it down real well and flat. Okay, both pieces of a groove rod wrapped around them. I'm going to take them over to the CNC machine, and they'll be able to be anchored down. This is just some old pocket material. This is some old plywood that I recycled out of something, probably at my dad's house. And, it was actually used for maybe some roofing. And it's still very good. And then the inner side parts, I'm just using it for the pocket joints for these sides. They're all hidden. So most of this will be cleaned up, taken off there. So recycling. All right. This is my sacrificial board. These are my 2 jig boards. These are held down with the nylon nuts in there, and they're both drilled so that I can locate the nuts. I've resurfaced this once or twice, not taking much off of it. This piece gets replaced when I get done cutting a bunch of stuff. I'll either turn it around or I'll flip it over, and that'll give me a good side again. So, you know, this little piece here, sacrificial board, works good. I generally will put nails, pin nails into it. It's 23 gauge pin nailer. Milwaukee's got a great little pin nailer. And then screws with the little fender washers. And that makes just dandy holding power. And so that's kind of what I'm doing with that setup. Alright, there's my hardware for setting that up. This is square with a gantry, and the sides are square with a gantry. So all I need to do is put an anchor here, score this up with the table, and then it'll be ready to cut. So let's get those put in. Okay, got our ankle down. It's holding it good and flat. We got one in the very back, one on the side, one on this corner, and it's not going anywhere. It's pegged to the board. It's held flat, and there's going to be no moving and no hardware for your bit to hit. So save yourself money and adopt this, and you'll be happy. One of the strengths of the Shark, in my opinion, is it doesn't have any limit switches. It doesn't know where home is. Home is where you set it, so it always will come back to home as long as the machine's fired up. And if you want to come back to the home, just move it to home and where you want it to be, and then shut the machine off, and it remembers where it's at. So that's one of the strengths of it. You can take any kind of pieces. You notice I've been doing a lot of cutting over here. Well, I'll just move the piece over here, and we'll run my cuts over here because this is the corner of the start off. So there you go. So let's get her cut. All right, on this dice box with the material, and I'm still designing first cut, I'm just going to burn it with a laser. That way I know if I'm going to miss the board or if I'm going to hit hardware. It just started doing the habit of doing that when I'm doing production, and I know where everything's at, and my boards are all the same size. I wouldn't do this, but this is a step I've started adding to that. So I'm going to load that up on the thumb drive and get it to burn that in with the laser. One thing on the screen on the Sharks, the first letter sometimes can be truncated or you can't see it, so I added a line in front of it, and I put mine in alphabetical order, like A, B, C, D, E, F, G, because this puts it in the order that it was created. And so this way I always know, okay, that's A, B, C, and D, and I just remember which one of them I was running, and then the last one. So we're going to load A, pockets for the lasers. We're going to do a laser cut, and it's going to laser cut right there on that and cut out all the pockets, and that way we'll know if we're going to hit the board right and everything's going to happen. All right, my material's on the 10 by 13. My material's about 9.5 by about 15. So we're going to just double check, make sure this is all going to fit on there. I'm going to have to tweak it over just a little bit. All right, it's going to go down in here and carve out the side pieces, and then it'll draw a line around it where the pieces all fit. And nice thing about the laser is it's controlled by a box, and so it turns off the spindle speed. But just in case, don't forget to turn that off and shut your router off. I've also got a relay that turns my router on and off, so I'll hear it click, and that reminds me to turn it on back on. Because generally what happens is I'll break a bit when I turn that off and forget to turn that back on. So between the software and these setups, it kind of gives me warning to get it set up just right. So anyway, I'm burning in the information on the board, and burning in the layout of the pockets, and make sure it all fits, and then we'll see what we get out of it. All right, I got the 1/4-inch end mill down cut, checked up. The laser shows me that I'm cutting in the right place. I just set the height up, and it's going to go in there and do a clearing cut, and then I'll finish up with a 8mm or a 1/8-inch bit, and we'll let this cut out. It'll take a little while, and we'll load it up. Okay, moved up to the good stuff. This is a 1/4-inch plywood. Just Lowe's underlayment. It's the party backer. It's got the little X's on the back side. I'm cutting this part up. I've got it in the boxes where they're just pretty close. So now I'm going to add the tolerances of the material that I figured I was going to be able to get. I've been using some reclaimed wood that I got out of some old dresser, and so it wasn't quite to this dimension, so I may have to tweak it just a little bit more, but it's about the 5th redention. I think this will be my 4th box that I've assembled. Let's see here, yeah, 4th box, and here they are. This one just held together by rubber bands. So if you see some red on there, that's where I said it needs a little tweaking. And this is our slides, our pieces, and yeah, it's kind of fun to add them, and we'll see what we get. Sometimes I'll think of that I needed to add something and I mess up, or I do a tool path that's off a little bit, and like using a quarter-inch end mill for a 1/8 inch bit, that kind of makes for a bad joint. So, you know, them things add up. And naming all my files correctly now, and or thinking I am, like in order prosecution or order process, be like A, underline A, underline B, underline C, underline D, and that way I can pick them out, even though sometimes they're not in the same way that this sees it. It sees them kind of as a file creation. So anyway, I'm burning out the layout on this thing, and it basically is just going down through there and cutting out these are the slides that go inside the box, and I'm just using a 1/4 inch just to make it's a good choice of material. It's flat, probably won't warp, and it's made to slide inside. This bottom one right here is a spacer, and so that's all coming together, and we'll see how she goes here. All right, I've took the laser out, chucked up the 1/8 inch end mill. It's going to go out here and cut these out around these lines, and I was able to check, you know, just by looking at it. But you could also take this after it's cut it out on a scroll saw, and it'll be pretty close to what you need right there. After I pull that off the machine, it's got a little bit of splintering, not too bad. And I've used this Milwaukee sander, great little pad sander. I really like it. It does a good job. It takes me about 3-4 seconds just to go over that. Just put all the edges around, and it'll do fine. So does a nice job cutting it out, and we'll move on to the next process. All right. This has tabs in it, but they're not really holding too much. I went ahead and shot some 1/2 inch pin nails in the middles of the pieces. I could have done that easier with the laser after it went around it, so I know where the pieces are. And but if you don't, it'll take off flying, and then you'll get a bad cut on one of your pieces. All right, we're going to cut the box joints. I've got it set up where I could burn the box joints out on the laser if I wanted to, but I'm not going through this step, and we'll just run the box joint profile. Okay, that process is done. There's box joints for these pieces. All I need to be is a little cleaned up and good. I should have put some pin nails in there and run the laser, but as it was, the last cut was a little bit thicker, so it worked as tabs. So there we go there, that's done. So let's move on to assembling the box, this box here, and then getting some material out for the pockets. Okay, once I get all the pockets cut out, I go ahead and run the laser path and run it and put on the inside what that is, and so that way it makes it easier for me to find it. And then I'll run the 1/8 inch bit, it'll be the other part of the clearance, and it'll go through there and it'll clean up those corners, because right now they're cut with a 1/4 inch nail, so they make them a little bit stronger. Probably around the edges of the slides, just as easily, but it doesn't take long for that to run. Alright, cutting out the outside boxes. I lasered these just to give you an idea. I've got a mixture of my arrangement on my piece that I'll be using to assemble, and then I'll cut it out of some 1/2 inch material hardwood. Okay, I'm working on the outer box. I'm going to be V-carving some text and stuff on these boxes, and you got to make sure that every one of them is lined up in the right direction for this to work. This is just made out of some hardboard plywood. It was just some cheap paneling I bought for $7 as just for jigs and shims, and I just cut it out. The original material will be a 1/2 inch thick, so the outer dimensions will be this thickness. But I thought, well, this piece of scrap, I'll just use it, and all I did is just set my height a 1/2 inch on my CNC, and then it cut it out. So anyway, I've got to change these numbers around a little bit to fit. I got 4 of them right, 2 of them were wrong. I've got to move 1 and 2 around, change the numbers, and in that orientation, and they'll fit together just fine. So we get that done and move on to a piece of wood. Alright, I'm cutting the acrylic box on the outside. I went in there and I put a screw in the very center of each one. I use a laser and some tape to mark each one. Now I'm going in and cutting the box joints around, and I'm turning my speed down on my router as low as I can get it, which is a bunch, but that thing works good. Generally I just keep it on full unless I'm milling plastic, because I don't want it to burn, and get it to run as slow as I can possibly get it to run. That's using a down cut bit, so it's still melting a little bit. Let's see what we get out of it. That's what it's making right there, that box right here. Alright, I cut some Lexan out with the slides inside it. None of this is glued inside, it just fits. So each one of these things are kind of fitting in there. The slides are got a little bit of, well, they're not. I need to slide them back together a little bit, but anyway, it's all tight. It's all tight, and I didn't have enough Lexan to make a full block, so otherwise it'd be just looking like that. So I need to go down, and I thought I would do this while I'm experimenting with it to get it to show up, but that way you can see all the slides doing their thing, and kind of cool. So there you go. That's kind of what I'm working on. There's a piece I'm gluing up for some cedar for this outside box that would replace that plastic box. My trash board, or whatever you want to call this, waste board. This is what's left after I've cut all my patterns on this thing for all these boxes. And of course, I threw a bunch of junk in the trash there. But anyway, my last cut, I cut out of my waste board these, and I thought, well, I'm gonna make a box. I work with the Church Scout group, and I'll put them together, and then I'll say, okay, how's this box look? Looks good from the outside, doesn't it? Well, there's a lot of people that look good from the outside, but when you open them up, they ain't looking so good. They're just all eat up with some kind of a situation. So anyway, I thought I'd make a devotion box out of that. All right, the way I anchor this down is I just put about 6 or 8 pin nails in around the outside of it. Then when I need to, I just pop it up with a screwdriver. If I'm doing some heavy duty stuff, I might put a screw down in to hold it, but most of the time it stays put, and these little 23 gauge pin nails do a great job of holding it down. So all right, this is like my 3rd box. That's my 4th box. This was my 5th box. It pretty well is dialed in. That's all these parts are just sitting in there. There's nothing glued together in there. That's just all different parts, and they slide and they do different things. For this puzzle box, I've got to glue them together and make them a little bit tighter. I used the clear plastic to allow it so someone could see it and watch what it's doing. And anyway, so that's kind of that. And this was my first deal. I was going to that side cover. I put the Ranger coat on there, and it's got 6 sides, so there's 1 through 6 on it. That's just the empty box. There's no component or anything inside it. I could have put something inside it, but I didn't want to as of yet. I decided to go with a box joint, so I'm getting the box. So this box will fit inside that box, and of course the Lexan the same. I didn't have enough plastic to cut this, so that's why it's not incomplete. That's why it's not complete. But anyway, I've just got to do the slide on the top, and maybe adjust this over just a hair, but everything's working as it is. And I've just got to cut my slot for number 6. What I will end up doing is cutting a slot right here, and this piece will slide out this way here. So it'll slide out this way, and it'll have box joints on the sides and in the front, but part of it will slide out, and you know, a slot of it will slide out. So I'll cut it from that piece. And so anyway, getting it all dialed in. I can repeat this box here and just keep cutting them all day long. I mean, I could cut hundreds of them. They're all going to be the same on the CNC. So it's kind of cool because you can watch the slides as they work. And when you turn to the slides kind of interact with each other. And as you go around the room there, they interlock and go that way. And again, this isn't glued together. I've got a lot of slop in the box right now. So anyway, that allows that to do it. Like I said, it's not glued, so when I glue it, it'll be a lot tighter, and then that'll be good. So then I do that, and away we go. Okay, I've never really engraved any Lexan, or this is acrylic, but I've got Lexan. Don't buy acrylic. Acrylic breaks. I mean, the corners will chip out, it'll break. I mean, if you bend it too much, it'll break. So buy the better stuff, the Lexan. Even though it's twice, almost a third more, it does good. These are some of my first and second attempts. I had this stuff building up on the bits, and it was causing it to get, you know, kind of wild looking. I changed my font down to a single line font and used a ball nose, and then you'll notice that it got to where it was cutting out. Well, my wasteboard wasn't flat, and I had a scrap board on top there, and it was getting some funk on there. So I'm going to resurface this, and the way I do that is I'll go corner to corner, give me an X out in the middle, put my ball nose there, set that, then I'll load up this flattener and run a bit, and it'll be all perfectly flat again. And this is a piece of 3/4 particle board. It holds nails a little better than, and screws better than this. The MDF is on that board. So that's kind of what I'm doing. So let me get that marked and get that bit in and get her started. Okay, I'm ready to flatten it. Mark my center, took my ball nose out, I put in my flattening bit, and then I'm going to load up my flattening cut. And it's called flattening jig, and it's 24 by 24, which is the size of my table. And this is using it's got 23 gauge pin nails in it, and that's really about the only thing that's in there. So I'm going to put the guide down because it will snag some of those little pin nails from time to time that I'll miss them. And but it doesn't seem to hurt the bits, so that's a pretty good deal. So I'm going to get that started, and you can see where it's at, and you know, this will be smooth when it gets done with it. Okay, at 8 minutes later, 8.56, almost 9 minutes, about the time it took me to put some water in the RV for a little road trip, and she's just pretty darn smooth. So it's nice and flat. All the mess is contained inside the box, which is really nice. And I'm ready to do the engraving on that acrylic now. Okay, I've laid down my wasteboard on top of my jigs board. I flattened my jig board. Now I'm taking a real good clean piece of 1/4 inch plywood, shot pin nails down about every 6 inches along the edge, and that's holding it down nice and flat. So now I'll put my Lexan up there and run a few screws through it, and it'll be good to go. Okay, took the paper off of the Lexan, cut it down the size I needed. I ran screws around the border where I knew it wouldn't come into impact, and then I also knew that this would be like in the middle of one of those joints there. So now I'm going to go ahead and engrave this. I'm going around it looking for any flex in it, see if it's going to go up, because this is set up now for the engraving bit. Once I do the engraving, that'll tell me where I can put a screw in here to hold each corner, and hopefully that'll work out just good. It's very important for this to be flat when you're etching or V-grooving. Alright, the etching with the ball nose, 1/16" ball nose is doing good. It's not, I've slowed down the router, I've got the speed going fairly fast, and I'm just basically making one, cut on the line. So it's not sticking to the bit like the others had. I had to go around it and kind of keep a wood stick and kind of tap it around the bottom of the bit where it was building up, because it fuse that stuff back together. So it's not doing that now with the ball nose. And I am taking a just real light cut, not very much, 0.01, I think, maybe a 0.002. So anyway, so far this is looking good. Good. This is Lexan with Polycarbonate. Don't waste your money on the acrylic sheets, because they will break. Okay, got all my individual parts down with 2 screws. I'm using brass, so if it hits it, it probably won't break it. 1/8" bits is kind of a wonder if it will or not. I could have used one-sided tape, but I'm pretty sure where my holes are, and I've got some other parts, so I'll use them as a pattern to put those screws down. So okay, this is my top of my box. It's not box jointed, it's just a piece of scrap, and I cut in the slots for the sides, which is that's all it is just a keyhole slot cutter. And then I figured 2 little spots like right here that goes in there, and there's one on each side. Hopefully it goes in there anyway. So that'll go on both sides. I need to modify my hole here in the back just a little bit. I need to slow down my process just a hair. And anyway, with a little bit of sanding, that's going to be just fine and dandy coming in and out of there. So there we go. I'm getting closer all the time. All right, I've got a piece of cedar down using the screw and the saw kerf method all the way around it, holding it down pretty flat. I'm going to flatten it with a bit and the flattening bit, and then we'll engrave it. Okay, while I was out mowing the yard, this thing was cutting out alert, clean, honest, courageous, loyal, courteous, and that's outside the box. So we're getting ready for some box joints. Okay, got those cut out. I did end up going in here and putting a couple pin nails in each one of them pieces to hold them in. I couldn't remember if I had tabs in there or not. Tabs and box joints. Anyway, the little pin nails, inch long, they did a good job holding it in there. So now we're down to the point where I need to edit the backside of the top box, and there we go. All right, well, it worked. The cedar is a little bit too well, it just doesn't quite hold it, so I moved my box in just a little bit more, and making a new lid for this carbonate. And so I got a couple boards gluing up from some scraps, and we'll see what this looks like when I get done with that. Okay, got that in. We'll see how that goes as far as stability goes, and it's carved on the back side. We'll see if it fits in the box. Okay, revision 2's in the CNC machine. I'm getting ready to cut it out. This is the courteous, and the C's were cut off, the S was cut off. Slots are tight. These were a little bit thinner, so they broke, so I moved the whole thing in just a little bit. And so far that's held together, and I'm getting ready to cut the last cut. If you can make this out of cedar, you make it out of anything. And so there's that cut. I'm getting ready to do a cross cut on the here to cut this piece out of the center, and then we'll see how she fits. All right, so my little sliders in there, lined up, ready to go put on the machine, the box, and see how she fits. All right, she came out pretty good, other than a little bit of sanding, and that's the box. This is a box made out of Lexan. It's the exact same size. The inside dimensions are the exact same size, and the outside dimensions are exact, other than the plexiglass. And you can, of course, see the slides as they traverse through the openings up here. And they haven't been sanded to where they'll slide yet, but 90% of that's done, other than fine tuning. So, I mean, really, really fine tuning. So, anyway, so there it is. And carved cedar boxes that are a puzzle. And what's cool is the box inside is that right there, and that is all just a bunch of loose parts sitting in there. Nothing's glued together. So all these little parts, there's 3 layers in there, and this has been a work going on for nearly a month. So there we go. Hopefully we're going to run over it and it's going to be fine. So here we go. Aspire, I've taken this box, it's taken me about a month to get it from all the various steps through all these different sheets, from the design and just drawing the vectors to then to getting to the point where I started cutting them. And then when I got to that point of cutting them, then I went out to refining, and each of these sheets are just various sheets. For example, once I got all the box joints cut, then I went in here and I modified just the top sheet, because it needs a slot and it has a pocket in it, and it gets carved, and so I had to make 3-4 iterations of this. So once I got it all laid out, then I've come back to my box joints for the outer box, and basically went in here and cut the top of that off so that it slides in. This one here, I ended up working on the slots that with a keyhole slot to make it where the slide slides in there. And throughout this process of a month's time, I went in and designed this. I made a crystal clear box made out of acrylic, not acrylic, but Lexan polycarbonate. Don't use acrylic, it breaks. But to use the polycarbonate or Lexan brand. And I learned how to, basically etch plastic with it. So a lot of the processes going in here, in the insides, the contents of the box, as I started off here, then I went to the inner box, made the inner box, and I made the pockets for all the sides, and then I made all the slides, and I worked on that for quite a while, tweaking it, getting it all to where it fit. And then I made this inner box, this outside box out of acrylic, put all the parts together, slid it in there, activated and watched all of the parts slide in to that point. Then I made the outer box and put in all of the text on there, got that going. And then after I got that point, then I went to this top of the box and did the double-sided machining on it, where it popped. And at the same time, I had to recreate this one box top, because as I was moving in and out, I was getting it to where it fit. And along that same line is with the layers menu. Of course, I've got my sheets. These are all my sheets lined up, and they have toolpaths assigned with each one of the sheets. Then my layers, I've got tons of layers, and that way it allows me to organize, turn off, turn on, that kind of thing. Probably one of the biggest things that I learned through all this is whenever I was in here working on these vectors, and I wasn't sure where this vector was, I would just sit there and right click on it and activate layer selection, and then it would take me to the layer that I was working on. So a lot of times when you're working on these different various layers and you're over here working on another sheet and you're over there, I'm still in the cutout box over here, and if you do any designing or any changes, you need to activate, and now you're on the slide 2. Now you're on highlight that, activate layer selection, now you're on slide 3. So I learned considerably about that in that respect, and so that was a big game changer for me as far as keeping all my stuff on my layers and keeping all the tool paths right. In my tool paths, I also several times duplicated and used these template where I would take these tool paths and turn them into templates, so I wouldn't have to recreate them. I would just go in there and modify them. Also learned about the layering on some of these sheets, the tool paths that are assigned with these. Let me turn that on there. When you go in here and you look at your tool paths, they're they can get pretty intimidating whenever you're looking at them as far as a standpoint of what progression you put these in. So also learn to use layers and cut them out on laser, make sure they fit the different pieces of material. So all in all these layers went in there and helped me out a bunch. Just a whole lot of stuff. So it was a very learning curve, and I enjoyed it. I've got a great looking box, and thanks for putting up with my learning process.